Welcome to Brunch with Besties podcast.
Hey guys.
I am Sherry Renee.
And I'm Chanel.
Our mission is to heal and help others as we heal and help ourselves through purpose-driven conversations.
That's right.
So first, we have to give a thank you to Rob Jackson from Raising the Bar.
Absolutely.
For putting together an amazing event called Day of Mourning, which happened on Saturday, which happened on the 4th of July. So just a day for everyone to come together to collectively mourn all of the lives that were lost. And then so that we could get to a point where we can be more productive in terms of taking action. So I want to thank him for that, and along with Lakita, and in conjunction with Unity Gospel House of Prayer.
Absolutely.
So this is sort of part of a series. So we did have Day of Mourning Part 1, where Pastor Marlon Locke from Unity Gospel House of Prayer did join us. So if anyone missed that, feel free to check that out on the Good News Radio, and then also on SoundCloud, iTunes, and everywhere where you can stream. So we're here to do a special episode, kind of a touchy subject, but a conversation that needs to happen. So I do want to thank everyone for joining in. I'm going to start by thanking David Bowen, State Representative, District 10. You are actively protesting right now as we speak. And I think that just is a testament to your involvement in the community, and just your passion for the people.
No, I appreciate that, y'all. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, awesome. This is what I live for. And before I was ever elected, this type of work, being engaged in community through protests, through demanding change, is how I got my start. So I'm just honored to be on Brunch with Besties finally. You know, I've been dreaming of this moment. Who knew it would happen while I'm literally at a protest at the same time?
At a protest at the same time.
God be knowing God's timing. So, hey.
Right. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, David. And we also have some other special guests as well. We have Miss Julissa Acevedo, sister of Joel Acevedo, whose life was taken just recently in April. Hi, Julissa, how you doing?
Hi, I'm okay. How are you guys? Thank you guys so much for inviting me to today. I know it's an important conversation, and I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to share my brother's story. So I really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. We're thankful that you're here and that you're willing to share. You know, I know it's probably going to be difficult, but I'm glad that you're willing to share, because we need a change.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we also have Miss Taleavia Cole. Her brother Alvin Cole was also tragically killed in February. So hey, Taleavia, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's real tough, to talk about it, but it's something that needs to be done, So I want to thank you all for inviting me and spreading more awareness to my brother's case, and also what type of person he was.
Amen. Yes.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Absolutely. And Julissa, you brought a guest with you. Your publicist, Tanya, is here. Tanya, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you all so much for having Julissa on the show today. And it's a pleasure to be here with you. Certainly, under these circumstances, it's a sad day everywhere, because it's always sad when we have to have these kinds of discussions. But, I think that it's important what you're doing. And it's important for us to begin to start talking about not only how our communities are so vastly affected by this kind of thing, but to start talking about how we can implement solutions so that we can begin to start to see change, because that is so important. If we do things the same way, then you get the same results. And that's certainly the definition of insanity, right, David?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So before we start, we sort of checked in, but we need to check in just a little bit more, because we really just want to touch base and see how the families are doing. So Taleavia, I know you have another sister, and then obviously you have parents who have lost. So it's been a tragic loss for you. How is your family doing?
Yes, we holding up. That was our baby. He was the youngest of 7. Parents just celebrated their 27th anniversary in January. And his birthday was January 17th, a week after their anniversary. And he was killed on February 2nd, like 2 weeks after his birthday. So it's like, you know, a lot of things start to happen back to back, you know, and me being in college and having to travel back, it was just a lot, you know, but it's something that needed to be done because, you know, I needed to be here with my family, you know, and show them the way, and also learn on the way of what to do, how to do it, and just make sure my family continue to put God first, because he's the only one that can get us through.
Amen. You preaching already.
You sure are.
And while we have you right now, could you just tell us how old you are, what school you attend? Just give us some background.
Yeah, I'm 22. I attend Jackson State University, senior, criminal justice major with a emphasis on legal issues. So I was striving to, you know, go to law school and be a criminal defense lawyer. But, you know, I kind of feel a little discouraged, you know, now that everything has happened. So just trying to get my mind right to figure out, is this my path, you know, and just what to do next, you know. So I'm out here in Milwaukee. I'm back home and doing what I got to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And then, Julissa, same for you. Can you give us some stats? Well, first, can you tell us, how is your family doing?
Obviously, it just happened, so it's fairly new. We're still trying to cope with things amongst everything that's going on in the world with coronavirus and dealing with that, and then, you know, dealing with what happened after George Floyd. So it's just been overwhelming. I don't know if we've been able to mourn correctly, if I should say, but we've just been trying to deal with it day by day. As you can see, my parents are out there protesting. They're out there today. So my dad said that really does help him deal with, you know, some of the things some of his anger and things that's going on inside. So, I mean, we're just trying to cope and find different ways to cope each day. It just happened not too long ago. We're trying to figure out what the next steps are. You know, we're not too familiar with the justice system in general. We've never had to really deal with anything legal. So everything is so new to us. Yeah, we get asked to, you know, have conversations like this, and we have a bunch of people reaching out to us, asking to help. So it's just a lot. I feel like it's just a lot going on. And also I'm still working 40 plus hours a week. So I'm just trying to cope. My family's doing fairly well. I do have another brother who's been having a really, really tough time with it. But we're just trying to just take it day by day, and trust in God and pray for peace every day, and just try to keep moving forward.
Amen. For sure. And tell everybody about you.
I am 30 years old. I just turned 30 in January. That was stressful, but I made it. I'm here, I guess. I am not married. I don't have any children, so I don't really have any of that going on currently, but I work for Aurora, so I'm in healthcare currently, so it's very, very busy. So that's just about that.
Thank you for all you do, frontline worker.
I know, you're a superhero.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then, David, we have to check in with you too, because number one, you're out here every day protesting. You're actively protesting right now. You did have the coronavirus. It looks like you're in good health, which is good to hear. But you also are a Black man in a political role in the most segregated city in the country. So how are you doing?
Every day alive is a blessing from God, first off. And now I think the devil's just been busy throwing everything at our community, and COVID and its impacts really exaggerated all the disparities that we already had and brought it to life even worse in its impacts to one of the poor cities in the country as well. So we've been trying to handle all of those challenges, and still, we just saw the stats on violence rapidly increase. We have families being evicted out of homes. A lot of people lost their jobs due to the pandemic. So it's a really tough time. And, one of the things I've just been doing is really focusing on the plight of the people in our community that are looking for a hand up. They're looking for assistance. They're looking for help at a time when, months ago, none of us saw all this coming. So
Right. Yeah.
that's what's really interesting is that it rapidly hit our community and left us at a disadvantage even more than other communities. We knew that the first,
David, you're on mute. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry, somebody tried to call me. But all of the first 13 deaths due to COVID-19 were African-American folks. And it was important for us to recognize, especially the disparities in healthcare and the disparities in, people from our community not being able to work from home. The health effects really blew up in our community and left us at a disadvantage. So now we get to have a new conversation about how do we even become pandemic proof, if that's possible, because we have to be prepared for all these things that are going to hit our community. And we know that these disparities that have been left in place have not been eliminated, and some of them have either stalled or gotten worse. What do we really need to do to turn the paradigm?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then, just so we can get everyone on the same page, all of our listeners may not necessarily be familiar with everyone's story. Maybe we'll start with you, Taleavia. What can you tell us? So there might be some things that you can't share legally, and that's fine. But what can you tell us about your brother, Alvin
Tell
Cole?
us about Alvin. Yes.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with him being killed on February 2nd, 2020, at Mayfair Mall parking lot. So pretty much he was shot by Joseph Anthony Mensah, and he was shot in his back. So we found out, I'll say a few weeks ago, if not almost a month ago, who this person was that killed Alvin. And
so you all just found out?
We just found out.
Oh
yeah, because they wouldn't release his name at first.
They would not. And they still kind of did not release his name. We had to do, our own little research. And once we find out who he was and that he also killed two other people, Jay Anderson and Antonio Gonzalez. And it just kind of, shocked us, because it kind of brought the story back up, because a lot of people was silenced, including us, including the family, because we were told, hey, don't talk about it, be silent, so with us not being familiar with how this works, the system, we okay, but we no, it's time, and then at that moment after he was killed, that's when COVID-19 came out. So, the focus really shifted, and it kind of discouraged our family for a minute, oh, nobody's talking about it. Oh, they're just going to try to brush it under the rug and everything. So it was a difficult time for us, and that's when, COVID and then George Floyd happened. And even in that moment, still feeling discouraged because, Alvin was not out there.
Yeah. Wow.
And it didn't happen until we found out who killed Alvin.
Yeah.
And that he killed two other families. And from that moment, I took the initiative to reach out to those families to see who they were. And from that moment, it was like we've been together. And I've been leading these marches for the three, Alvin Cole, Jay Anderson, and Antonio Gonzalez, because to me, justice for one is justice for all families.
Yes.
And when I shout my brother's name, I'm shouting the other two names also. And it was hard to get in contact with Antonio Gonzalez family because it happened, 4 years ago or so. So it was hard to find relatives. But, at these protests, you got so many different people coming. and I wind up running into his best friend.
Wow.
who was with him the day he was killed, you know.
Wow.
And so just reaching out to her, and we talking and exchanging information, and she helping us find the family members. And it was her who wrote a hand letter and went to their house and left it in a mailbox, you know. And that was the day of our first, or I believe our second march for March 53. And when we was about to start marching, the mother appeared. And they was like, this is Antonio Gonzalez's mother. And it was just like, really? You know, I was just like honored to meet her, you know. And she said she haven't heard about this. No one told her about anything. And she was just hurt, but she was happy to be here, happy that people were shouting her son's name. You know, happy that, you know, that there's still hope for her son.
Yeah. I would imagine that, you know, it is very sad that your brother regrettably was murdered by an officer, but I would imagine that she would feel hope that justice, that she could finally get justice. You know, it's horrible that it has to be at another life,
right?
You know, but I would imagine that she might think, finally, you know, I can get some type of peace.
Yeah.
Right.
And also just to say all of their names and to not kind of just brush them under the rug. Like, no, we're going to scream all three of their names and bring awareness to what happened to all of them.
Yes.
By this one individual.
Yes. And so Joseph Anthony Mensah, you know, he joined Wauwatosa Police Department in 2015. And I say 6 months after joining, that's when he killed Antonio Gonzalez. And it's crazy because, you know, he didn't have to do that. You know, he was told that this man had, you know, a disability. He was like, they were told that before they went, you know, and there was 2 officers involved. But why did only one officer shoot one time and you shoot 8 times? That just don't add up.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And then 11 months after that, another kill, Jay Anderson. And he was sleeping in his car, you know, and what gets me is the lack of body cameras, the lack of footage, you know, and for him not to have his body camera on, but turn it on after he killed him. You know, let me hear this let me see this 10-minute conversation that you claimed you had with him. Let me see you knock on his window to wake him up. You know, why didn't you see a gun in that moment? You know, why all of a sudden there was a gun, a legal gun, you know? And then now my brother.
17. A child,
17. A kid.
Newly,
you know,
17. Like he had just celebrated a birthday.
Golden birthday.
Wow.
Golden birthday, you know, and my brother, he was, you know, striving for better, you know, because I always told him average is officially over. You know, that's a quote that I live by. And I always try to get him to go to college with me. Like that was my only goal for him. I said, I'm gonna get you here. You know, you do what you gotta do. And I'm gonna get you here.
Yeah.
And he would have been JSU 2024. And and I didn't really push, you know, like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, you know, like as far as major wise, because I know when you're entering college, you're nervous, you think about, oh, what am I majoring in, what am I do, you know. And I always told him, you don't have to know what you have to do, you know, because I didn't know coming in to college what I wanted to do. And I know I stressed a lot about it. You know, it's okay going undecided. Most students go into college undecided, you know, but long as you get there first.
And he was trying to get there.
Wow. And he was. And about to graduate high school this year. And he was extremely smart, you know, so that's something I was very proud of him about, because since he was young, we're like 5 years apart. So we were closer, you know. And I taught him everything. I was always in sports. I was doing a lot, you know. And what I learned, I wanted to teach him. So, you know, we'd be out in the field playing soccer, you know, football, skating, just some, you know, to keep him active, keep him involved, you know, because he had older siblings. And I wanted to be the one to, you know, be active with him, but I also taught him, you know, right from wrong. I corrected him when he did bad. It's like to the point where he didn't cuss in front of me. He didn't do nothing because he respected me, you know. And I didn't even have to say nothing. I gave him that look, like
the mama look, the mama eyes.
Yeah. And he like, my bad, sis, you know. So that's something I know he did. He listened, you know. He was respectful, and I just wish I would have pushed him more and showed him that, you know, I was proud of him, you know.
He knew you were proud of him.
Yeah.
He knew that you were proud of him.
He did. Wow. So what was he like as a kid and growing up?
Oh, wow. He was the life of the party. So he always liked to dance. And to me, he barely had rhythm, but he got better growing up, you know, and he would win all the talent shows. They loved him. He had long hair, light skin. He was just a ladies' man his whole life, you know, and he always loved to be around family. Like, that's something that he wanted every week, to be around family. Even when, like, where you at, brother? I'm at cousin house, you know, and he knew people we didn't know. I'm like, you can't be calling everybody your cousin. I'm like, who your mama? It turns out that really was our cousin, you know. And it's like he knew so many people, and when everything happened, it's like a lot of people reached out to us, you know, and told us how they knew him and what he did for them. Like I had somebody recently yesterday reach out. It's like, you know, I'm sorry for your loss. You know, I just want to let you know that Alvin helped me, you know, through my problems. Alvin helped me with my math. And it was an older person. He was way older than Alvin. And he said, like, I wouldn't have did it without Alvin, you know.
Oh, that's
wow.
So that kind of, you know, made my day, you know, knowing that he was able to teach other people, not just what, you know, we taught him.
Right.
But just he knew.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of him. Yeah, but he was really funny, you know. He was a rapper, dancer.
Yeah, bars. Okay.
Yeah, little bars, you know.
Okay,
Hold on, he wasn't better than me, though. I'm just saying, you know. So, but that's something we enjoyed doing every time we saw each other. Every time I came home for break, you know, like, go freestyle, you know. And I wasn't the freestyler, so, but he taught me. That's something he did teach me. He taught me a lot of things, you know. So I'm always grateful for that, you know. But yeah, he was our baby.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it looked like he had a bright future ahead of him.
Absolutely.
Sure did.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when was the last time you recall talking to Alvin?
I'll say 2 days before. 2 days before he was killed. That was, and it's crazy because I was kind of upset, you know. I'm like, because he wound up calling me. I was in school. He was like, dang, sis, you can't call me. I said, I'm sorry, brother, you know. And it wasn't a long conversation, but, you know, I'm glad it was a conversation. You know, I felt like it could have been more, especially with the position I was in. Like, in college, I joined the church. So I kind of like was focused, you know, focused on my relationship with God, saved, and I fast often in college, you know. So it was during that moment when I was fasting, you know, when I was, you know, really into my word, like no distractions, you know. So like, it's like, what can happen? What can really happen? You know, and I feel like that was my chance to really talk to him, to really preach to him and help him out. Like, because when I tell you my faith was there, like I spoke everything to existence, you know, and it was to the point where if I was at home, I feel like I could have probably woke him up, you know, just by speaking it. You know, that's the faith, you know, I had. And it was a Sunday when he was killed. So I was at church, you know, and I came back to my dorm, you know, and I'm like, it's the best day of my life, literally. you know, and getting that call, you know, and broke me down, you know, but I broke down and praised God, you know.
Wow.
I really did. And I'm still doing it.
Wow. You have strong, amazing faith.
Amazing.
That's a powerful testimony right there. And his death will not be in vain.
At all. It's not.
It won't. Maybe we needed Alvin to get everybody free, you know.
Right.
Jay Anderson, get everybody, you know. Justice for everybody. Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk to Julissa just for a second so we can get some insight from her. What can you tell us about your brother, about Joel? Who was he? Was he silly? Was he funny?
First, I just want to say, Taleavia, you are so strong and I admire your strength. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. Joel was so funny. He definitely was a jokester. He always had something funny to say, always. Whenever you walked in, you just knew that he was going to say something silly. He was kind, he was loving, he was sensitive. But I would say majority of the people knew him as a jokester. Just like Taleavia explained, when her brother died, a lot of people reached out to me when that incident happened with my brother, and they're like, oh my gosh, I met him one time, you know, at the bank, and he was just so funny, you know. I met him for 10 minutes and I would never forget him, you know. He just had that personality that was just unforgettable, and a lot of people gravitated towards him because of how, you know, just how good of a person, how kind, how genuine he was. I mean, I don't know if you guys seen the picture floating around of his big old smile. That man, I mean, that's just
jokester.
Yes, he was just this handsome, very funny, kind person that a lot of people had their own special bond with him. And a lot of when that happened to him, a lot of people reached out to me, teachers, nurses, just so many. Like I got like 10 messages a day. Just, hi, I know you don't know me, but you know, I just spoke with Joel like last week, and you know, he always helped me get through my tough times, and he was just always so kind and so loving. Childhood friends that, you know, shared that special connection. The people that were friends with him when he was a child, still to this, you know, until the day he passed, still had that really, really good connection with him. He loved animals. Actually, his dog that he had for 13 years passed away 3 weeks before he did.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So that was his baby. He's always with his dogs. He just loved animals since he was little. That was his thing. But yeah, he was definitely a jokester. Ever since we were younger, we spent a lot of time together just doing silly stuff. There's a lot of videos we have of us just dancing crazy, or, you know, making jokes with each other, or just, you know, he was definitely the light of the room, the life of the party. And it affected a lot of people. You know, friends, family, neighbors, you know, we had neighbors come to our house that were just crying, like, oh my gosh, you would never forget him. He was, you know, so nice. He would always come over and make sure we were okay. And it's been very, very difficult for a lot of people, but he was definitely a kind soul and a loving person. So
yeah. And he wanted to be a police officer, correct?
He did. You know, he worked as a security guard. Well, his most recent job was as a security guard. So, you know, he met a lot of police officers at the bank where he worked, where unfortunately he met Officer Mattioli, who ended up, you know, killing him. But he met a lot of police officers there. And I think that they kind of inspired him in a sense to want to improve his life and you know, become a better person and become a police officer in a sense. And there was one officer that he was really, really close with, which was not Mattioli, but he would work out with him every day, and he would be like, man, I really think that I would be a good police officer. So he was really inspired by them, or really influenced by them in a sense. So yeah, that's where that I've never heard him say he wanted to be a police officer as a kid. He always loved animals, so he was always, I want to be a veterinarian, I want to own a farm, So this dream of being a police officer is fairly new, and I think that it's because of the influence and all the people that he was surrounded at work. So.
Okay. So listening to you guys, to both of you describe your brothers, they're kind, they're funny, they're helping people, they're doing all these things, they're the jokester. How does it feel to have these reports out there sort of criminalizing them, So, in your case, when it comes to Joel, it was, he's being accused of stealing, right? Which kind of doesn't make sense, because you know what I mean? I'm not going to get too far into it, but you're at your friend's house. And then two, when you think about it, if Chanel was stealing from me, I know who she is, so I don't need to attack her.
Right.
I know all your stats. And if I'm an officer, I have all the resources to get all the information I need, right? So I can find you.
Thank you. I mean, I think that's the toughest piece of all this, is just trying to make people understand that that's not my brother. My brother's not a criminal. He has no criminal record. I've seen comments saying that, he deserved to die because he was stealing. He's a criminal. Why are you crying for a criminal? And all these different things. And it's just really is sad to think that somebody can criminalize victims so bad, and then the person who actually murdered someone is like a good person. It's just so crazy. That's been like my biggest, battle during this whole, and this has only been a few months. Imagine having to have the same conversation and defend your brother for months and years and years. I can't even imagine what that feels like. And I feel like I'm going through it now, and it's exhausting. It's like, how is it that Officer Mattioli is innocent until proven guilty, yet my brother is automatically labeled as a criminal? How is that even possible? The story doesn't even make sense. If you read the criminal complaint, Mattioli's behavior was just way out of line. I mean, even if that story was true, which we know that it is not true, but even if that, his actions were way out of hand, way out of line.
Excessive.
And it's just, it's excessive. And obviously my brother's story is a little bit different than a lot of the other police brutalities, because he was his friend. I use friend very, very lightly, because I would never do this to a friend.
Absolutely.
However, that's what his argument is, that they were friends. But just the aggressive, I guess the police culture just plays a huge effect on, I guess, every aspect of your life. They are, the way that they are able to act and get away with it over and over and over again, that obviously affects their personal lives to the point where they can just treat their friends that way. And it's like, are they sending a message where you can't even be friends with the police officer because you don't know if they're going to put you in the chokehold? Like, it's just so crazy. But to have to constantly, prove to people that my brother was a good person is exhausting. And like I said, it's crazy that the officer is automatically labeled as a good person, and his word is 100% facts because he's a police officer. And it's like, if the roles were reversed and my brother and his friends, because Mattioli had two friends there, but if my brother and his two friends accidentally killed this officer, the story would be so much different. Nobody would be screaming they're innocent until proven guilty. It would just be such a different situation. First of all, both of his friends would be locked up.
Yep.
I mean, you would think that people who were there watching him getting choked and, holding his legs down would get locked up. But it's really exhausting. It's hard to see and listen to over and over again, where they're just labeling him as a criminal.
Unimaginable. And that's why I'm so thankful that you all decided to do our show. because we do want to bring life to them and to humanize them and to let people know that there are people that have full lives, happiness, families. So that's what's most important. So if, you know, our mission is to heal and help others, we definitely gonna keep your brothers' names alive, for sure.
And maybe Tanya and David can speak to that, because in the case of Joel, he was invited to a party from Mattioli during a pandemic. So
that's number one.
How about that? Mattioli never even had a party. You're an officer. So if anything, you should have been held to a higher standard. And then he did use a chokehold. He was off duty. He used a chokehold that resulted in your brother's death. And you would think that he would be tried, or he would at least be looked at as a normal civilian, and not because he was off duty.
Yeah, it's like that off and on duty switch. They use it to their advantage whenever they can. And it's like, oh, he's a private citizen. Oh, but he's also an officer. It's like, it's just crazy to think that somebody who's been an officer for 13 years and also has military background put somebody in a chokehold for over 10 minutes and doesn't know that he's going to die from it. You know, it's like, how the heck does that even happen? And like you said, police officers should be held to a higher standard. And it just feels like they're not being held accountable. People don't want to talk about anything bad that they do. It's always the person who's dead. Like I literally comment to people, you are so worried about my dead brother's actions more than the police officer who actually killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just crazy to think. It's sick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, attorneys have to get involved in cases like this, because at one point you have to hold these individuals accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Acevedo, let me just first say this, the Acevedo family, they are grounded. They love the Lord, and they do nothing outside of that. I would say that they are a Romans 8:28 family. They truly believe that all things work together for good. You cannot imagine. It's very interesting that, you know, when we're on the phone and we're having talks. I mean, sometimes Jose, Joseph's dad, he'll call me just so that we can have prayer together.
Mm.
That means a lot.
Awesome.
You have a family that's grounded, and they truly believe that in spite of everything that is happening in their life, all of the bad, that something good has to come out of this. And I think Taleavia was saying the same thing about her family. And so when you have that foundation, it really does make a difference in the way that you see things. Now, you know, the sad thing though is that, you know, this continues to happen. It continues to happen. So Attorney B. Ivor Lamar has gotten involved in this case, and also Attorney Ben Crump, you probably recognize his name.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, the Acevedo family, they've got powerhouses who are behind them and pushing them and holding them up. And I tell Julissa all the time, I say, you know, when things get really rough, just call me, because you've got folks who will be the wind beneath your wings. And Taleavia, it's the same thing with you guys. You know, you have to find that individual who will be the wind beneath your wings. You know, obviously it's good to have that religious foundation, but sometimes we just need that person that we can call and hear a real live voice saying, you know, we're here for you and we want to help you and we want to lift you up. And so it's great. I know David, you know, is doing the rallying and the protests, the protesting, all of that is great. But when the rallying and the protesting is over, the question becomes, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yep.
What do we do to change the narrative so that this does not continue to happen? We are losing our families in large numbers, and it's disproportionately affecting Black and brown families. And so what do we do to change the narrative? Those are the kinds of conversations that we need to be having. And so that's why I like the fact that you all are having this show, because again, we can talk all day long, but let's change the narrative. Let's talk about solutions. What do we do to change the narrative?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you brought up a good point. And David, do you want to jump in? What type of solutions would you suggest? or what's on the agenda, David, as a state rep? Oh, David, you're muted, huh? There you go.
Okay. Thought I unmuted. I was just going to say, 39 days into protesting, the longest running protests consistently in the country right here in Milwaukee. There are solutions on the table that weren't considered, even 2 months ago, from how much we are spending on reactionary policing, where it's not that we have police departments that are providing gold standard service to everybody that they serve. Police departments usually are structured to provide gold standard service to white people that call on them for help. So it's very clear in our community the way that we can even be treated, even when we are the victim. A lot of times we end up being treated like we're the perpetrator, like we're the suspect. And the solution specifically when it comes to police accountability and reform that are on the table right now is to have a standard of use of force that is across the board, state law in Wisconsin, that you are required to de-escalate situations, that you are not using lethal force as your first option of action, that it needs to be the last resort of using lethal force and having that on state statute so that there can't just be a defense that I feared for my life and I acted, right? There are other non-lethal things that can be done, especially verbal communication that can be done. When you have situations like Dontre Hamilton, for instance, in downtown Milwaukee, where literally the officer is trained not to engage people with mental health issues in a certain manner that trigger their mental health and their mental illness. Literally, they're going against what they are being trained to do as the best practices. So that's what we really need to highlight. There are best practices across the board that we're talking about now, banning chokeholds, ending no-knock warrants. That's the same thing that killed Breonna Taylor down in Missouri. And, there are a host of other issues that we are really trying to target to ensure, like the law enforcement board and their focus on making sure that they can be a proactive board, not just in the current issues that they do in setting the standards of policing, but they actually can review cases of misconduct. Some of those things are now on the table that we're having conversations about. And there's another conversation happening right now around the demand on the police department. Right now, our police department in Milwaukee gets over 260,000 calls a year. And it's unfair for officers that are not even trained in certain situations to be called to handle certain situations. So, there are things that we don't need an officer for. We need a therapist. We need folks that are trained in mental health engagement. We need folks that are, much less lethal, impacting, that can really just go and check on people. A number of situations, they don't start off with violence. They start off non-violently. And you need regular city services to just help folks to respond first, but we don't have enough resources to expand capacity, especially for like the Office of Violence Prevention and their 414 team, where they literally are in neighborhoods. They are diffusing even situations where people are getting into arguments and things of that nature. They're building relationships in the community and in the neighborhoods. But it's a 10-person team, right? And they're covering the whole city. They're covering certain neighborhoods, and they don't have the capacity to reach out to other neighborhoods. So there's a $1 million grant fund that would fund violence prevention programs to that degree. That fund needs to be a lot bigger to be able to cover a lot more services. But it's just not a reactionary approach like we've had on policing, on reducing violence and reducing just certain situations that are happening in our community on a regular basis. We have to get a lot more proactive with research-based, evidence-based approaches that will actually get towards the target of what we want to do.
Nice. Yeah. And I guess I'm wondering how long would that even take to implement? Because, you know, as we listened to Taleavia and she talked about how the body camera wasn't on when Jay Anderson, I'm sorry, was it Jay Anderson that when he was killed? But I believe that it wasn't even mandatory. And so
right, the Waukesha Police Department doesn't have mandatory police body cameras. So they're now looking at as a council, because we've been out there, we've been really putting pressure on them to say you can no longer have a police department that does not have body cameras. It should be mandatory for your whole department to have body cameras.
Yeah, and the latest that I saw on that is they're thinking, so first of all, they started talking about that in 2016, right? So here it is, 2020, still nothing has been done. We have more bodies. And then, and now they're talking about it's going to take $500,000 and maybe 6 months to implement. And so it's just one of those things where it doesn't appear to be very urgent, right? And we don't have the error is too big. The error is too great. You know what I mean? Where we have bodies at stake. And Taleavia is talking about her brother should have been graduating from high school and going to Jackson State, you know, and it's just one of those things where it's like, what can we do now?
Right.
Yeah, you know, as we talk about the police departments, law enforcement, and the amount of money that needs to go into training, and the amount of money that needs to go into, you know, just all of the aspects of government. You know, I don't know how you all feel about this, but I know that there have been a lot of folks screaming, defund, defund, take money away from the police departments. But I totally disagree with that, in that, you know, what would it be like without law enforcement? Not all police officers are bad actors. You have, but the problem is that when you have departments across the United States, even one or two bad actors inside of a police department, it turns into a domino effect, and now it makes it look like, you know, the one or two make it bad for the many. So what I suggest, and what I think, you know, the individuals who are working with the Acevedo family have suggested, is take that money, right, and put it into programs that will help to train these officers. Put it into, because listen, police officers actually have to deal with a lot of very traumatic situations. PTSD is probably very prominent amongst police officers, just like if you were a Vietnam veteran, right? And so if you experienced something 2 weeks ago, and now fast forward, you're out on the beat, and all of a sudden you're having flashbacks from what happened 2 weeks ago, and you just completely trip out. Well, if you had been forced to go to counseling and get psychological testing, then this would have not happened, right? Some individuals do not belong on the beat. They should be sitting behind a desk.
Right.
And so we firmly believe that, you know, there needs to be consistent mandatory psychological testing. Attorneys, in order to keep their license, they have to, on an annual basis, take so many hours of CLE courses. Well, it needs to be the exact same thing for police officers. They need to be forced to undergo so many hours of psychological testing to make sure that they are fit to be on the beat.
Yeah, and shouts out to my soror in the chat here. She says mental health evaluations of officers, de-escalation training, intensive and extensive de-escalating training, which is essentially what you just said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So along that vein,
I just wanted to shout out real quick. You've seen some opposition to even some of the common sense proposals that have been out there for quite some time that would save lives, and unfortunately, police unions have been very common in opposing legislation or changes that would hold them accountable, that would make it harder for them to pretty much keep those bad actors and to keep them on the force. And that's essentially what, you know, it's a hybrid of what people are saying with defunding, not eliminating police officers,
right,
but right-sizing our police departments with people that are actually prepared and willing and able to do the job for everybody, no matter their color, no matter where they're from.
Right. So I was wondering, David, can you speak to what's different with our police system here in the United States versus other countries? Because, you know, when they put up the stats, they say, you know, here in the U.S. in a year, we kill X amount of, or police officers kill X amount of people. And those numbers are very different in other countries. Mm-hmm. Like they're in the under 5, you know, under 5 people a year are getting killed outside of the United States, but inside of the United States, it's over 1,000.
Yeah. I have family in the UK, right? My uncle, my parents are Jamaican. So my Jamaican family that lives in the UK, they came to the States, and the first thing he said, he knows I'm elected. And he said, what is up with so many Black people being killed by the police here? Mm. And it's, you know, it's very clear that other countries are paying attention, and, you know, the uprising and the many folks that are being engaged right now in the process around the world, not just in the United States, but around the world now, are really looking at these systems and some of the similar things that are happening in other countries, but at a much lesser scale, at a different scale. I think one of the things that's different is that many countries like the UK, they don't have armed police everywhere. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the hiring for police officers is much different than it is here. Mm-hmm. And the preparation that you have to go through to be an officer is much different. And then one of the things that people don't think about, one of the things you guys mentioned at the beginning of the show, was the fact that we have the most segregated city, and we have one of the most segregated cities in the country. And essentially, we have a lot of officers that aren't from our community and don't live in our community. And it creates a lot of, you know, the basis for distrust, and the basis for folks not to really believe that the force that we have, the police service that we're getting, is coming from folks that actually care about our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it sounds like we need to. So, David, what should we be doing, right? We marching, we're rallying, hopefully we're voting.
Right, all of that. So what do the people need to do?
And I know that there's a petition out for Joel. So people need to sign that. But what else should we be doing?
Yeah, I think people definitely need to get engaged in the process, whether that is engaging your elected officials, calling them, finding out where they stand on these issues, whether that is going to city council meetings. A number of local governments in southeastern Wisconsin, they have fire and police commissions where they make decisions when it comes to your police department, hiring and firing decisions. They make standards and protocol there. Most of these bodies were made up after the Ernest Lacey killing in the late 80s, where literally the police department covered up the murder of that Black man. So that change has allowed there to be an independent body. It's appointed by the mayor and you know, seconded by the common council, but it is a body that is responsible to stay on top of you know, hiring decisions and for the demand of accountability. I think that's one of the things that people can do.
Say it
again. One of the more creative things,
what meeting is that again?
The Fire and Police Commission.
Okay.
So Milwaukee has a Fire and Police Commission. Wauwatosa has a Fire and Police Commission. Shorewood has a Fire and Police Commission. These are bodies that, you know, the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission is a little bit different because they have a lot more power than some of the other commissions. But, you know, and there's also a process every body of government goes through where sometimes some decisions are made through the contract of officers. So if you go to Campaign Zero, I believe .org, campaignzero.org, and you also have the 8 Can't Wait campaign. These are national efforts to keep track of, you know, use of force standards, police contracts, and standards that should be implemented to make sure that people can be held accountable if they are in law enforcement. And if you pay attention to where your city is on the spectrum of the different things that will determine if there are standards and rules and practices in place to hold people accountable. You'll be able to match your city up with other cities and see where LA is, see where Chicago is, see where a number of cities are and how they are having these standards in place. And one of the things that happened in Camden, New Jersey, they literally disbanded their police department and started all over, right? They fired everybody and rehired the folks that were the best fit for the new culture of the department that they wanted to create, that would provide the best service that they could get and provide for their community. And you know, it's one of the things that are out of the box that people are considering, and not just disbanding, but having a protocol of redesigning the system in a new way.
Yeah, and actually I'm in that camp, you know,
Yes.
and maybe it's a little bit extreme, but to me, again, the error is just, we don't have room for error, right? We can't say, oh, a pilot lands sometimes. No, like you got to be precise, right? It's all about precision. And so that's my stake, you know, that's my position too, is get it, you know, get rid of it all, call it police 2.0. I don't care what we call it, but start over.
Yeah.
And mainly just because when you look at the history, right, you think about how police officers were first slave catchers. You know what I mean? And then they were focused on maintaining order in terms of, hey, you're colored, so you need to drink from this fountain. You know what I mean? So sort of always criminalizing Black people. So to me, it makes sense that they're targeting us. You know what I mean? It's rooted so deep within the culture and within the history. Are all officers bad? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah, but when the whole system is created in that criminalization of Black people, then that's how the system was created. So it does.
To me, it works. To me, it works the way that it was designed, and I think
it was designed to. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the problem is that it was designed poorly. So, in my opinion, we need to just cut it and start over.
Yeah.
So you
need a department that's willing to be accountable. One of the really big failings in all these cases is that there usually is another officer there that could hold their partner accountable, but the current culture is not to get rid of the things that are wrong. It's actually to protect it. It's actually to let people off the hook if they do something rather than holding them accountable. And I think that's one of the biggest failings, and it really destroys public trust in a system that is supposed to be there to protect and serve you. And it's ironic when it goes sometimes in reverse, when white people are asking for things and they actually get the outcome and the service that they want. But when Black folks and brown folks are asking for things, it is literally the complete opposite, and they defend the wrongdoing. And it's one of the biggest failures.
Absolutely. And I think Sherry Renee mentioned this earlier, but when we had Pastor Marlon Locke on, who talked about his previous time of being a Milwaukee police officer, and how he said when they would speak up, you know, they were labeled as being bad, or, you know,
or a lazy officer, or you know, when you're
reprimanded,
they won't, like they won't back you up. So now when you need help, they won't back you up.
Yeah.
Just shouting out one of my amazing organizers over here, Brandon Wilborn. He's been on the streets all 39 days. He's 19 years old.
39 days.
19 years old.
Shouts out to him. So
I totally agree with you guys.
Adre in the chat said, to change the system, you have to bust it up. This needs a surgery, not a Band-Aid. And then Scarlett says, that's the problem. It's working like it should.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So yeah, I kind of want to ask Taleavia, because your brother was actually murdered by a Black officer, and I was wondering, were you shocked when you found out that he was Black?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, huh? Good.
All right. Very shocked. You know, my family was, of course, you know, also, but it was still an officer. You know, so I feel like I would have felt the same way if it was a white officer. You know, because in our mind, oh, it was a white officer. You know, until someone leaked his photo. It said it's a black officer, you know. And it did hurt a little more. It really did, you know. And he was the only officer killing for Wauwatosa Police Department.
Wow.
Within a 7-year span. And so it's like, is he their hitman? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, how many black officers do they have at Wauwatosa? So it was just like all these questions in our head, you know. But then I tried to, you know, just shift the focus, you know. Because like I said, just to piggyback back to like them criminalizing Alvin, you know, oh, he deserved it, oh, he shot at the cop, you know, like we had to deal with all that, you know, but I knew it was coming, right? So I had to prepare my family for that. Like this is what's about to happen, you know. So what we gonna do, we're not gonna entertain it. We gonna do what we gotta do because we got the community by our side and we got family who's on Facebook, you know, and is responding to these negative comments. So we don't need to engage in it. We don't need to, you know, comment back and argue with people. You know, we look for platforms like this who can help us create this narrative, you know, the correct narrative, you know, because the media is not going to do that, you know, and you got like people like Fox 6 News who want to talk to us daily, but don't block negative comments that is on their page, which bothers me. You know, I'm like, we're not going to talk to you if you can't delete these comments, if you can't stop people from saying the things that they're saying. You know, you just can't allow that to happen and want to speak to the family. You know, and that's and it's crazy because a few of them, you know, they said they had meetings recently about that and working on plans or planning on what they're going to do to stop negative comments and Black people and things like that, which should have already been done because now this is a norm for the media. So so it's just like really focusing on what we got to do, you know, and we're not out here every day, you know, because like I said, it's still new, you know. My people can't march all the time, you know, and the virus is out here. So we got to be cautious, you know. That's why I go out whenever I can and represent the family. And if, like I said, even when I can't, we got the community by our side, you know. We got the people's movement. We got, you know, people who continue to show up to these city hall meetings, which is very important because this never happened in Wauwatosa. Nobody ever challenged Wauwatosa. If they did, it was like 1980, you know, and it took this to come back. And it was crazy because I think it was the second march I led in Mayfair. And the news person asked me, are you going to the city hall meeting? I'm like, you know, what city hall meeting? And so she explained it. And I'm like, yes, we're going, you know, and from there we marched to the city hall meeting, the common council meeting. And we were packed in there, and we, you know, we let them know what needed to be done. We added to their agendas, and that's what we need to continue to do, to go show up, let them know that Milwaukee is here. Yeah. And not just Milwaukee, residents of Wauwatosa was there. One of them happened to be Alvin's teacher. Wow. And I know when he was younger, he had problems in school, especially with that teacher, you know. So it was shocking to see him come out and represent my brother, you know, and then say his name and take control, you know, like he did. And, you know, so I just imagine how many other people will speak up, you know, that probably didn't mess with Alvin or didn't know Alvin, but like he knew how important it was. And with him being a Wauwatosa resident, you know, he felt like it was his duty. And I feel like it is. And that's why we disturb the peace when we in Wauwatosa. We don't march on the busy streets. We marching in the neighborhoods, letting them know that, hey, you either with us or you against us. You know, aren't you scared for your life? Because Joseph Mensah is still on the streets with his firearm.
Yeah.
And he's still getting paid.
Wow.
So how is that ever fair? You know, this is why we say defund the police. You know, because you're still paying cops who are being investigated right now. And it's crazy. This is where people tax money is going to.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You know, we don't support it. You know, and it makes us fear for our life knowing that he's on the street with his firearm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we already get complaints, threats, and all that. So whether it's from him or people who support him and what he did, you know, we don't know who coming after us. Not only that, we got to watch our backs from officers, not just Wauwatosa officers, because I doubted if Wauwatosa officers are here stalking us, but they are stalking us and harassing us like we're the criminals. So it's just like, that's why we kind of lay low a lot of times, because we got to be watchful. We got unmarked cars sitting out front of our house. You know, when we have events, you know, we get followed. My auntie gets followed back to the south side, you know, and, you know, so I got to let my family know and friends that, you know, come around. Like, yeah, be watchful, because they not just watching us, they watching who's around us. They watching who we know. And also it's kind of sad because, you know, we don't feel like we can talk to the people we want to talk to, like especially my mom's. You know, she want to talk to her family, her sisters, her aunties, you know, but she feel like she can't say nothing on her phone. She feel like her phone is getting tapped, which it is, you know, and it's sad because she can't, you know, heal the way she wants to. She can't, you know, go to her family and tell them what's going on and keep them updated, you know, about what's going on with Alvin and a case and things like that. So it kind of feel like we just got each other.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, it's always, oh, we can't talk on the phone. You know, I'm sorry, you know, I want to tell you this and that, you know, but we can't.
Right.
Wow.
And it's difficult, you know, and that's why, you know, I lead a march for D3 once a week. I don't do it every day, but I join other movements. I join other people marches, you know, until I plan another march. Otherwise, I'm with the People's Movement or anything else that I see going on that I want to join and bring awareness to my brother or in D3. So that's kind of what's going on as far as that.
And also Rock Nation just issued a public letter, and he included your brother along with the two other individuals that Mensa killed, unfortunately, and he's calling for the immediate arrest, you know?
Yes.
So what do you expect to happen from that?
Yeah, did that take you all by surprise that happened?
It did, you know, because like that was one of my goals, you know, to get my brother's story national. You know, and I asked people, I begged people to, you know, give me their resources, you know, to just hook me up with anybody, news medias in different states, anybody. And so I had to do a lot on my own research, and not just me, but a lot of people in the community. But like to hear Jay-Z and Rock Nation is on our side in his fight, it kind of got to us, you know, like, okay, it's getting the national news that we wanted to get.
Right.
You know, and especially from Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and hearing that he did the same thing for George Floyd, and Beyonce did the same thing for Breonna Taylor, and now us, you know, that's big to us, you know, and we don't know, you know, what'll happen going forward, but I know this is an eye-opener, you know, but it's also, we also know that, you know, a lot of conservatives don't watch TV or don't read, you know, the papers, so it's like, you got to show them what happened. You got to tell them, hey, Jay-Z, do you know Jay-Z is against this? Jay-Z want this man locked up, you know? And they probably like, who is Jay-Z, you know? So it's just like letting everybody know, just because it's on TV or internet, not everybody is on watching TV or on the internet. So you got to really go to them and let them know what's going on and what's about to happen with this.
Right.
You know, because somebody got to listen. Somebody got to know that this can't continue to happen. And they said, how many more people would Joseph kill?
Right.
Yes, that's what they said. And they detailed out how many shots he fired in 5 years, 3 bodies.
19.
Yeah.
19 shots.
19 shots.
People been on the force for decades and never touched their firearms.
Right.
Yeah.
Never shot. You know, so to shoot 19 times and to still have your job.
And still getting paid.
Yeah, and then I know somebody earlier said, you know, are they even doing psychological evaluations? Because what makes you want to pull a trigger 19 times?
Absolutely.
Right.
You have other people that were at the scene with you that didn't shoot at all.
That didn't shoot at all.
They were in closer range to the quote unquote perpetrator.
Yes.
Wow.
It just don't make sense. You know, you have to be some type of crazy at this moment. You have 3 bodies.
Yeah.
You have 3 bodies.
So I would think that he would be asking for help, because if I killed, I'm not an officer, right? But if I killed 3 people, I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if I killed a kid, a 17-year-old,
and
I wouldn't be able to have any peace.
I think that's going back to what Tanya was saying too, that they do need, Tanya and I think David mentioned this, that, you know, officers need that psychological, like, training, and they need those things, because that is ridiculous that you can sleep at night knowing that you killed 3 people that we know about. I'm hoping that it is just those 3 and not many more, but that's ridiculous.
Right, that we know about. And it is ridiculous, you know. And just like this whole system is ridiculous, you know. And it's crazy because I don't know if it's his wife, but she's a Milwaukee police officer.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I've been seeing people post her on Facebook saying how horrible of a person she is and what she did at the Children's March and things like that. And they said, as someone said, this is Joseph's wife, you know. So seeing her working at Milwaukee Police Department doesn't make it any better for us. We don't know what she's doing. To me, that's a conflict of interest, you know. So I don't know if she's leaking information or anything.
Right. Wasn't the case turned over to the Milwaukee Police Department for investigation?
It was. And I don't even agree with that, because it's like tick for tack. You know, they both investigating each other at the same time too. That's not fair. You know, to me, Weber and Chisholm are friends. You know, my father asked Chisholm, do you have dinner with Weber? He said yes. You know, like that's not okay. You know, I know y'all gotta work close together in a way, but like, no, it's y'all been working together too long, and you ain't did nothing, Chisholm. You ain't did nothing. And now that this pressure is on him, he really taking the time to think and look and redo things, which he have to, because he knows that what he choose to do is going to result in how we react.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and what comes next, because you charging Joseph for Alvin is going to open a door for Jay Anderson. And Antonio Gonzalez, because we're going to look at that, because we know that wasn't okay either. So we're going to go back and trace everything you done did, Chisholm, everybody you done let go. Now your reputation is going to be damaged, which is already is, but we willing to open up other cases to see how many other officers you let loose that shouldn't have happened.
Hey, absolutely.
So I'm ready to.
I think what you're speaking to also is part of the problem, right? The way that the system is set up. So you have Wauwatosa working with Milwaukee, but it's still officers. You have people that are essentially friends, right? And then even if you throw in some of the prosecutors, if they're always working with these same officers, then you have a systematic issue, right? Scratch my back, I'm gonna scratch yours. It's like the system is gonna make it so that they win.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. And it's crazy how, you know, they can tell us one thing, but we know, you know, they really don't mean it. You know, it took a minute for Wauwatosa to even apologize to my mom. You know, say sorry for your loss. Like, they couldn't even do that at the council meeting. And that's why, you know, we kind of went crazy. Like, hold on. You just asked this mother to speak about the loss of her child. And y'all can't look her in the eyes. You can't say sorry for your loss as a person, as a human, as a mother, as a father. That's not an admission of guilt. It's really not.
Right.
So that kind of bothered us. You know, even the city attorney, herself, was so disrespectful. You know, and it goes back to, like you said, the history of how this system was made.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we continue to do what we got to do. We continue to get out here because we're not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to celebrate the small victories, you know, like getting these things added to the agenda, like using this strong language for banning chokeholds, because it can't be broad. We got to know what that actually means, you know, because you can stop people breathing all different types of ways, you know. So you got to be specific of what you want, and after that you have to add accountability too. Because if you just got that, people ain't got to listen, cops ain't got to listen, because ain't no consequences behind it.
Right. And
so
then
that's where that accountability come in at.
Are you just gonna find a new way to kill?
Right.
Absolutely.
To kill.
Are you just gonna find a new way? So so now you're outlawing lynching. Right. Thanks. You know,
but
thanks, I guess, but we'll find a new way.
Wow.
But since you brought up chokeholds, I want to go back to Julissa, because that is how your brother was unfortunately murdered. Yeah. And I was wondering, since they were quote unquote friends, did he ever express any sort of remorse or give something? I mean, obviously an apology would never be sufficient, right? But did he ever express any condolences at all?
No, not at all, which is insane. Like I said, for them to be friends, the way he acted. I mean, even in the police complaint after he found out my brother's condition, he was like, I don't give a F about his condition. I don't give a F how he's doing. The 911 call. I mean, the way that he his behavior was just way excessive, way overboard, unremorseful to this day. I mean, when we went to the initial court hearing, he was very casual. It's like he has this attitude where he knows that he's going to win the case. He knows that he's not going to be, he's not going to be held responsible for his actions in a sense. And I mean, the way his lawyer speaks about it, and it's just like, it's crazy to think that, an officer, even him being off duty, having a party, doing drugs, alcohol, everything that was involved, and you really just have that attitude, like, right, very arrogant, like, nope, he doesn't care, he's gonna get away with it. And it's just crazy to think, and it's scary. And I'm, as a family member, when and I share the same thing with all family members who've lost somebody to police, brutality. And it's like, you have this fear where, man, is he going to get away with murder? Is he really going to get away with murdering my brother? That is, I think about that every day, like, I don't want to say something that's going to hinder the case. I don't want to do anything that's going to hinder the case. But then it's like, we're in the position when we don't know what's right or wrong. And then she was explaining with the prosecutors and how very dismissive they are and how rude they are. It just seems like we have nobody rooting for our team. We have nobody, we have an appointed prosecutor who doesn't care. He didn't, at the initial hearing, he didn't come up to our family and say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, or he didn't even acknowledge us there. And it's just like, and we were addressing the $50,000 bail being like extremely low. Everyone thinks that it's fine. $50,000 for killing somebody? Are you kidding me? Like,
with your bare hands?
Right.
Like,
no.
wow.
And it's just so crazy. And the prosecutor, our attorneys, asked him about that. Like, why didn't you say something in response to Mattioli's attorney in regards to increasing the bond? And he was just like, well, we feel like $50,000 is enough. And he just walked away.
My God.
And it's just like the way that you feel as the family, it's just like kind of like a sense of hopelessness, as much as we rely on God. I guess maybe I'm speaking as an individual for myself. Sometimes I feel hopeless in a sense where, what do we do? You know, there's somebody who's appointed, there's, you know, John Chisholm and all these different people who do work together, who are, you know, kind of having each other's back. I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine type of situation. And it's like, you know, what do we do? You know, we have our attorneys, we have, you know, people working on our behalf, we have the community, which is our voice. So we're hoping that what we're doing currently, trying to bring awareness, we are asking that the 911 recording and the body cam footage be released. They still haven't agreed to that. We just feel that it would be an eye-opener, because I watched the body cam footage and I listened to the 911 call myself. And it is very disturbing, you know, disturbing the way that this officer was acting and speaking. It's just disgusting as a human being in general. And to think that this is the person that's patrolling our streets and supposed to be protecting us. And, you know, these are the people we call. And it's like, for him to be so disgusting like that to my brother, you know, I mean, you can hear my brother choking on the 911 call. You can hear him gasping for air. You can hear him dying on the call. And for him and his two friends that were there to just act like nothing, act like my brother's life is meaningless. And it's just really disheartening. And I just hope that our voices and the resources that we're using, our attorneys, and, you know, everything that we're doing does make a difference and does shed a light on some of the corruption that's going on in the system. And, you know, just to make changes, you know, the banning chokeholds, that's the first thing that definitely needs to happen, because that is crazy to think that an officer can choke my brother for 10 plus minutes and think that he's okay and think that he's justified. You know, even if my brother was trying to steal $1 million from him, I mean, that's not a justifiable act. That's not, and for you to be a 13-year veteran and served in the military and have all those different training and experiences, for you not to be knowledgeable, you know. So sometimes I think that he did it on purpose. You know, I think he intentionally killed him, you know. And I mean, how can you not think somebody's going to die when you're choking them for 10 minutes?
Yeah, especially, you know, if they're pleading for their life. I was watching an interview that your mother did, and she said, you know, he just kept saying, please let me go home.
Yes.
No, let me go home. That those were the last words that she heard.
Yep, those were his last words. He was just asking. I mean, listening to the 911 call, you can just hear that my brother was fearful. I mean, the way that the officer and his friends are trying to describe Joel, that he was being, you know, belligerent and trying to fight everyone, and, you know, just like they were in fear of their life or something. But if you listen to the 911 call, that does not even sound like that at all.
You know what I was wondering? If he was acting so crazy, why didn't they just arrest him?
Exactly.
You the police.
You have handcuffs.
Why didn't you just arrest him?
This is your house. You could put him out. You could do a number of things.
And that's the thing, is my brother was asking to leave, you know, and Officer Mattioli states that, I told him to leave. But if you told him to leave and he was asking to leave, why didn't you let him leave then?
Exactly.
You know, some of their stories doesn't match. And I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. My brother's a big guy. Mattioli's bigger than him. If there was an actual fight, the house would be all in shambles or something. It just doesn't. I mean, I know my brother. The way he sounded on the 911 call just seemed not like he was, you know, trying to fight anybody. The way that there was a fight, there was an altercation, like blah, blah, like it doesn't even make sense. Even the Mattioli's friend who was on the call, the way he sounded was like, oh yeah, a man's trying to attack us. Like, it was very casual. It was very like, it wasn't like there was, there was no fear.
Probably scripted. Like, this is what we gonna say. So it's scripted.
Yeah. And that's what makes
but as an officer, they know the key words, right? Yeah. This is what I need to say. I have to say I'm in fear of my life, and then we're good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They do it every time to every single victim. Oh, I thought he had a gun. Oh, I thought this. Oh, he was trying to, you know, he was resisting. He was like, they always come up with some story to justify their actions. And then people believe them, or they get away with these things over and over and over again. And that's, you know, being a part of the victim's family, that's my biggest fear, is that he will get away with it because he's an officer.
Oh, I did read something where it said that there's a very small percentage of officers that actually, get even tried. And then when they do, people tend to believe officers because they consider them an authority figure, right? So even if something goes to trial and it's just somebody's word against theirs, they typically believe the officer because the officer is supposed to protect and serve. The officer is risking their life every day, which again, some officers are. Some officers are amazing officers, and some officers have died in the line of duty.
Absolutely.
Trying to save someone.
But here you have an officer who was hosting a party at a time when he was actually passing out citations to other individuals who were not adhering to stay-at-home guidelines. So, go figure.
I mean, on top of everything else that, he probably has on his record. I mean, the two witnesses, admitted to doing drugs. I mean, there's just so much in this story that
just don't add up.
Just doesn't add up. And we want to make sure, I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that people know that this officer was not a good person. And that's my goal, is because, like you said, people automatically view officers as good people because they are the ones who are sworn in to protect and serve. And it's like, how is my brother viewed a negative person and the officer is not? And it's like, I'm going to do everything in my power, and I'm sure, Tanya and our attorney's going to do everything in their power to make sure that people know that this officer was not a good person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, at the bottom line is officers are people too. So if a surgeon accidentally kills somebody, they're out. Like, they're immediately, like, there's no question. You're getting your medical license taken away. You're out. A teacher does something wrong. The teacher is out. So teachers are these are people. So to put them on this pedestal to say, that they can't be held accountable, to me just blows my mind.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, the qualified immunity is what they ultimately get. But I don't believe that either of their lives will be in vain.
No.
Taleavia, as it relates to you, I really think that Alvin is going to bring everybody. You know what I mean? I think that those other two families will get victory from this. I think that they're going to finally have peace. Again, I hate the way that it happened.
Right.
And same thing for you.
Yes.
Joelle, I think that the truth's going to have to come out eventually. It may take time, it may take a lot of work, but I think, as David said, like, we have to show up as a community. You know what I mean? That's why we wanted you guys here, because you guys are, everybody's talking about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and we are too.
Absolutely.
And we, you know what I mean? Because that was horrible. It was actually horrific. But it happened in our own backyard.
Yes, our hometown.
This is our hometown. And so we want to make sure that we are doing absolutely everything. If we need to call, then we need to call. If we need to show up to the meeting, then let's show up to the meeting. If we need to sign the petition, let's sign the petition. You know what I mean? We need to figure out what we need to do so that we don't have officers like this on the force, because David mentioned a number of things that are on the table and a number of things that are being considered, and they all sound great, but they will take time.
Yeah.
And so, since that's the long-term plan, in the short term, we need to do everything that we can do. And so I know, Julissa, I know you have a petition that you're looking for people to sign, and that's for, tell us what that's for.
In the petition, my cousin is the one who created it, but she does kind of give a brief description of what happened. We are asking, obviously, for the body cam footage and the 911 call to be released to the public. Officer Mattioli to be fired because he's still on paid suspension. He still hasn't been fired, and it's been, 3 plus months already, and it's like, he's still not fired. He's still getting paid. So that's another thing that we're asking for. And obviously we wanted a bond increase, which didn't happen, and for him to be arrested. Yeah. So,
guys, when you think about it, the police force law enforcement has actually paid a good portion of his bond.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Yep.
That's so crazy. I mean,
but again, it's the way the system is set up. It's the way that the system is set up.
You scratch mine.
And then, when you talk about his bond, I believe his charge was increased, but it was after he was already released.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that he was released on bond after his initial charge, which was strangulation. And then once Joel passed away 6 days later, obviously his charges were increased. His bond didn't increase. He didn't get rearrested. I mean, like I said, the whole system is new to us. We never had to go through this ever. So we weren't really sure. We talked to many different people. I mean, and I really don't know if $50,000 is enough. To me, it's not. I've seen other people receive way more than $50,000, and it's like
for lesser crimes too.
Exactly, for lesser crimes. And and it's just like a battle. It's just like all we're doing is sitting there in front of the DA, his investigators, the prosecutor. We're trying to plead our case to them when they're the ones who are supposed to be on our side. They're the ones who are supposed to have our back. They're the ones who are supposed to go against Mattioli, and we're arguing with them and trying to get them to understand what we're going through and what we want. And they just shrug their shoulders, and it is what it is type of attitude. They don't really care. They don't really care about the justice for my brother or for anyone at that matter. And it's just really sad.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because we feel the same way about Chisholm. Like, you're supposed to be the DA. Why are you asking questions like this? Why are you saying things like that? Like, you and your detective's supposed to be investigating, figuring out what happened. So when we first met with Chisholm, it was like, we kind of felt like he had a decision made, but because, we were there talking, and our lawyers, our great lawyers, Kimberly Motley and Deja Vishni, we were in there letting them know, like, no, this is not correct. So, and the whole family was there. Like, y'all didn't just kill somebody, y'all killed our baby. And we a whole family, so we're gonna be here from beginning to ending. But it hurts us to see that the DA, is not on our side. And we knew that. We not expecting that. But the fact that we actually see it, now we gotta experience it, is a little bit more difficult, and not just Chisholm, but Weber. And there's a petition out on Weber as well, for his removal, because Weber has been very disrespectful to this investigation. He goes on the news every chance he get, and pretty much talk. He just talk. And to me, it's crazy, because how you gonna go on the news talking about you believe Chisholm is gonna make the right decision, just like he did in the other two cases? Like, that's not okay.
Right.
Wow.
That's not okay.
Wow.
And then
that's scary, actually.
It really is. And he had claimed he didn't say it, but what, you're on camera. We hear you clearly. So don't lie to our face. And we trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but you had your chance. And if you, as a department, was to act correctly when the first death happened of Antonio Gonzalez, if Chisholm would have investigated it correctly,
could have saved 2 lives.
He could have saved 2 lives.
He could have saved 2 lives. Yeah, and not only that, but I'm wondering, is it negligence on their part for not installing the body cameras that were called for in 2016?
Right.
You know what I mean? And now you're saying that you could do it in 6 months, where you could have did that 6 months after 2016.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then maybe at least in this one, we would know what happened versus his side of the story.
Right. And it's very difficult. And I feel like that's why it's taken a little bit longer, because of the lack of body footage. We got to go by the squad cameras. And
which are very far away.
Right.
Very far away.
All I heard.
But I feel like people have the technology to critique the video to make it better. And
That's it.
Absolutely.
You're right.
They really do, and that's what I've been looking for, people who can, really look at the video and make some changes, edits to it. Because like, I want people to really see. And Weber, he was so quick to broadcast my brother's death the next day without our permission. Not saying that he needed our permission, but you didn't even show us first. You went and had a press conference. that you're not even the investigative department. Is Milwaukee.
Wow.
So why are you having a press conference? Why are you, claiming all of this the next day? Like, really, do you really know what happened by the next day? And my brother was killed on all six, like he was in a 6-point stance, which my brother surrendered. Like he was on his knees and his hands before he was killed, and he screamed for his mother. And that's kind of crazy because George Floyd called for his mother as well, and that pain we can never imagine from a mother.
Yeah.
And her hearing her baby scream, heard the witnesses saying, he called for you, and hearing the footage of him taking his last breaths, and also hearing him scream, no gun, no gun, no gun, please. Like he said that. Like, it's like he saw them set him up in front of his face, and it's just crazy because you can't say someone screaming for their mother, someone screaming, no gun, is going to shoot.
Right. Wow. And then shoot me in the back. Like,
in the back.
No threat to you.
Yeah.
No threat.
Man, police culture is so aggressive and so just cruel. I just don't understand. It's just hard for me to understand that it's 2020 and it's still so aggressive.
Yeah.
And
I saw your mom. She said, I sat there and I watched George Floyd and the way that the officers treated him in broad daylight. I can only imagine what they did to my son behind closed doors.
Right.
Yeah, she had a hard time watching that because, Joelle did die from being strangled, and she did kind of, like she said, when I saw George Floyd, I saw my son, being strangled behind closed doors. And it's just so sickening to think that this is happening all over the country every single day to Black and brown people. And these officers are just not being held accountable.
Right. And you never imagine it to happen to you.
Absolutely.
Never, because I've been out here protesting for everybody, been to DC, been all over, protesting and just making change elsewhere, and never thought that we would be a victim of it, and it's crazy, but I feel like God prepared me for this moment, because my parents, my family ain't never been out there protesting. So it's me that brings them out there like, hey, this is what we got planned for this day. You can drive your car, you can do this. I make them comfortable, you don't have to go, but I give them options and let them know what we should do. Because like I said, they new to this,
right?
But like I said, I believe God definitely prepared me for this moment, and it's only the beginning. It really is.
It is. Wow.
Yeah, both.
I just want to jump in real quick.
Yes, please.
First off, I'm so proud of the families who are rising to the occasion in this moment while they're grieving.
Absolutely.
And that's, the whole country literally is grieving, looking at so many Black bodies, being treated unfairly. And, I think one of the things that's really important that we can't miss, especially in the two families that we're talking about, Alvin Cole's family and their situation, and Julissa Acevedo's family and their situation. Literally, both officers are still on payroll. One's being charged for murder right now with the Milwaukee Police Department, and he has not been fired yet. Literally, we had the executive director of the Fire and Police Commission withdraw her name from being renewed to continue to be the executive director while she still hasn't finished the investigation so that he can be fired. So with her moving out of the way now, there has to be a new person there. The investigation has to be complete, and the Fire and Police Commission has to move forward with firing that officer. And now with Wauwatosa, literally they have a officer on payroll right now that is already, very clearly hurt 3 people, and both officers right now could resign from the police department and other police departments, other police departments could hire them literally, and they wouldn't know what happened on their disciplinary record because there's no national database. So unless you're fired from a police department and that is on your record as a firing, literally a lot of this stuff wouldn't be known, and you can just go to another police department and get hired. So that's what's really dangerous about the current system that we have. And when you have officers or police unions and folks that are just saying, leave things where they are in the status quo, literally you're defending people to be able to continue to go to other police departments and continue to do wrong.
Absolutely. Yep. That's crazy.
So, okay. So wait, so what needs to happen so that that does not happen? So even if they get charged, well, if they get charged, then they can't go. But it sounds like you're saying if they don't get charged,
they can resign and go.
They could resign
else.
and just go to a different city or a different state.
With no accountability. Like nobody will know what they did.
Right, because resigning in a sense is easier than firing, and you get to save things from off the record, right? And not be held accountable in the same way. So it's just ironic that literally you have police unions, you have these advocacy groups that are moving forward saying they don't want this database, or they don't want the disciplinary actions to be held accountable on the record so that other police departments know. Some of these things they try to sweep under the rug so that nobody else can find out, or they create a process of disciplinary actions so rigorous that you never can finish actually officially having it on the record and having them held accountable. So it just becomes dangerous, and what we need to do is to make sure those loopholes don't exist, and that you have consistent policy no matter in what police department, that they are investigating the things that have come up on their record or the things that have happened at their home. You know, the murder of Julissa Acevedo already had a situation illegally at his home of violence, and that's just coming out now.
Wow.
Right? But you need to ensure, especially folks that are going to uphold the law, that they are upstanding. The same law that they want to serve and protect, they have to also follow that law too.
Yeah.
And currently we don't always see that.
Wow.
Yeah, well, you know, the same way that you have officers pulling individuals over and using this database that he talked about as a reason for pulling them over. Oh, you know, this individual's name or license plate was in our database as having robbed a store, you know, in California, and they're in Milwaukee. You know, there needs to be that same system in place for these officers. So it's all about legislation and making sure that the proper legislation is passed. And it goes back to what you all said at the very onset of this call, and that is we have to make sure that we vote the right individuals into office, people like David Bowen. We got to make sure we get the right folks in office.
That's definitely something that the people can do. That's our right, and we definitely need to make sure that we're aware of who is running and for what, and just educate ourselves on that so we can be better prepared to vote.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of our people are struggling in that area. Absolutely. You know, as it relates to even just having the right IDs and things like that. Like, there's just so many things that are keeping people from the polls. Yeah, voter suppression is real, even now. That's a part of it, for sure.
And that's by design. That's by design, because this, you know, it's all institutionalized racism. It's put in place to make sure that we continue to remain an inferior population, right?
Yeah.
So what we have to do is we have to say we will not be inferior, and we will teach our children and our children's children that you've got to get out and vote, because that is the only way that we can have sustainable change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on, Miss Tanya.
Yeah. Come on with the word.
Yes.
Yeah. And, and maybe that's what we need to start doing more of on our podcast, is bringing in these candidates so that all the local elections, people know what they stand for and what we're looking for,
Right.
And our clergy, because look, that's where you find people on Sunday morning, even now in the midst of COVID, I love it. I can attend 5, 6, 7 services. On Sunday. I used to only be able to make maybe 1 or 2. Now I can attend 5, 6, 7 of them, but we need to make sure that we are also holding our clergy accountable. And our clergy can then hold their congregations accountable.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a great system.
Absolutely. Okay. So we are coming close to end time. Is there anything else that first of all, I want to make sure that we know what's coming up. So, Taleavia, do you have another protest coming up?
Yes, I do. The flyer should be posted either tonight or tomorrow morning. It'll be another march for D3. Definitely gonna emphasize on the LGBT community because Antonio Gonzalez was a part of that. So we want all different types of communities to come together, Black and brown.
Absolutely.
So we just gonna do something different this time and try to get more people out all over. So we're gonna do more of canvassing with flyers because everybody's not on the internet. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna try to do it either Friday, and it's gonna be in Wauwatosa.
Okay.
Yep. So that'll be coming out soon. And I'll send that to you.
Please.
Yep. So that's pretty much what got planned for this week.
Okay. Do you have a time just yet? And is it gonna be at Mayfair again, or is it gonna be somewhere else?
It'll be at Mayfair again. Okay. And it'll be roughly around 3 p.m.
Okay. Yep. Friday, 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. Mayfair.
Yes. Interesting. Yep. Got to add that for our LA listeners.
Oh, yes, for the LA listeners. Okay.
Gotcha.
And then you also have a GoFundMe, and we did link that in the show notes for our LA listeners. And then also when it goes on iTunes and everywhere else, it'll be there as well.
Gratitude.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And then, Julissa, what do you have going on? I know you have a petition and you also have a GoFundMe. Is there anything else?
I'm sure my parents are working on some type of protest soon. They actually love protesting. But Mattioli's preliminary, I think, hearing is on Monday the 13th. So I'm anticipating my parents doing something either prior or after that. They've been making the hearings quite early in the morning. I don't know if they're doing that on purpose, but yeah, I believe his hearing is probably going to be somewhere between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. is what my understanding is. Tana, you can correct me if you have something different, but I think that's our main focus is on Monday the 13th, figuring out what the next steps are for the trial.
Okay. And then you also have a GoFundMe and a petition, and those are also linked as well.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And David, what do you got going on?
I know you're protesting as we speak.
What's on the agenda for David Bowen, State Representative?
I appreciate y'all. Next on the agenda is the policy debate. Talk about, hey, what up? Is to talk about the things on the table and to bring Republicans on the table too, because we can't just get this done with Democrats. Democrats don't have the power to just vote these bills in. So it's really important that we engage folks all over the state of Wisconsin, let them know that this is change that we just can't wait for. This is change that we have to implement as soon as possible. And talk to people about the election. We have some really important elections coming up. We have some really important elections that are already passed. And some people are just realizing that, oh, I forgot about April, or I didn't know about August. And now I know about November, right? There are really important things that people have to get engaged in and understanding the process, the democratic process. So we got to keep it up. My agenda is just to continue to get people to learn.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All righty. Are there any?
Go around.
Are there any last words? that you guys want to say?
I think just encourage your listeners and your supporters to pray for the families, the Cole family and the Acevedo family, and all of the families who have been affected by these senseless murders, because that's what they are, regardless of what they want to try to label it as homicide. No, it's called murder.
Thank you.
Right.
That's what it's called. And so, the attorneys, pray for the attorneys, who are working. I can't remember the Cole family's attorneys, but the Acevedo family attorneys, B. Ivory Lamar and Ben Crump, on the front line, man, fighting a good fight. And we have to stand with them, we have to support them, and we have to pray for them, because, I'm a firm believer in that.
All righty. Well, I want to send my sincerest gratitude to all of you guys for joining and participating in this discussion. We are praying for you. We're praying with you. We're going to make sure that we can do everything that we can do to make sure that their names are never forgotten, number one.
Absolutely.
2, that their legacy is not in vain. And number 3, that we actually get real tangible change. So some is going to be short term, some is going to be long term. So in the short term, we want to make sure that we do stand with you guys for the arrest of these murderers, that we get that done. And then long term, we need to figure out the system. And I know that David mentioned a lot of policies that are on the table. So we all need to do our part and make sure that we're showing up when it counts, and that we're showing up even for the small elections, and that we're informed. I think that's the biggest gap, is that a lot of times we just are not informed, and we don't understand how all of these pieces work together.
Yeah.
And so, David, we love to have you back on the podcast. You can come to the studio.
We can go in depth.
So we can go in depth.
Maybe I'll be in one place at that time.
Yes, one place. So we can break
Attorney Kim Motley. That was, I think Tanya was thinking of the attorney for the other family. Attorney
Kimberly Motley.
Awesome.
Yeah. But and maybe that's what we need to do is walk through this so that we can all do our part.
Yeah. So we'll talk to you, David, offline and set that up for sure.
Most def. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all on the call. Let's keep fighting.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, so thank you guys so much for tuning in to Brunch with Besties podcast. Until next time. Peace. And then
in the live. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Amazing job, y'all. Amazing job, y'all.
Definitely sending you all love and light and prayers for sure. If we can get out there and be a part of anything, we for sure will.
Absolutely. Yeah, you ladies, first of all, both of y'all are very young. But y'all are
I don't feel young.
Y'all are young, but you guys are taking charge. And that's what we love to see. And as David mentioned, in the midst of your own crisis, you know what I mean? There's a pandemic going on. You guys are grieving, and you're still out here trying to advocate for change. And I admire that in both of you guys. And I know that your parents have to be so proud.
I know your brothers are proud. They're looking down. They are proud of the both of you for all the work that you all are doing.
Yeah, and I believe that if we all work together, we can get this done.
Absolutely.
You know, it may not be easy. It's going to take work. We got to figure it out. A lot of us are not informed. But I think if we all work together, we can do it.
I believe that.
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Tanya?
We'll definitely be calling on you guys as we move forward. You will be calling on you because we definitely need you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we all need each other, you know, because it's only a matter of time before it's somebody else. So that's why that's actually why I wanted people to see your face.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted them to hear your story. I wanted them to hear who your brother is, because I want them to know that could be their brother.
Absolutely. Or their son or their cousin or anybody. I have a son. So this definitely makes me be like, yes.
Yeah. And then, you know, that way we know that, hey, if I help, I'm stopping you from doing it to my brother. You know what I mean? Or like you said, your son.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm my deepest condolences. I can only imagine what your family is going through.
Thank you, ladies, so much. And Taleavia, you're so strong. She is young. I ain't young. She's young. She's out here.
I know. And Taleavia, I really do hope that you get back into. You would be a phenomenal criminal defense.
Yes.
We need more lawyers.
We do.
So
yes, we do.
If that's your will from God, then definitely follow that purpose and that path.
And Taleavia, I wanted to, go to law school a long time ago. I got other degrees and other stuff, and I just decided, maybe 2 months ago, I'm doing it. I said, F it, I'm in. I'm doing it.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
We gotta be, and you gotta do it on your own time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? When you can do it, and however it works for you. But like you said, you feel like you were sort of called for this, and I know Tanya started the call by saying all things work together for the good for those who love the Lord, Romans 8:28, and I believe that too. I really do. I believe that too.
Amen.
And I hope that nobody else's brother or son in this city dies.
That's our prayer.
And if we all work together, we can stop that.
That's right. That's right. I believe now, and I do believe that.
I believe that too. I believe if we all do it,
it's a village.
It takes a village. Working together to fight.
All right, ladies.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya.
Appreciate you all.
Send
us all flyers and links and everything else, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.